All right, I'm Ben Burgis. This is Give Them an Argument. I am joined, going clockwise, by C. Derrick Varn of Varn Vlog, by producer Jordan of San Diego, and by Kuba of the Deep State. How you guys doing?
Of Redacted.
Redacted. That would have been funnier. I should have said that.
Next time. If there is a next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Redacted.
Yeah.
Like common sense in this debate we're watching.
Oh,
Like you're in the morally safer lane of like homespun crotchety observations there.
Homespun like Grimes's little crocheted hat thing. Yeah.
Or, macrame toque.
Exactly.
Yeah, the head doily.
The head doily. Exactly. It's
I'd like to think that is handspun.
Yeah.
Just not by Grimes.
No, she doesn't have time for that, or the, fine motor skills, one assumes.
By an absolutely lovely lady from rural Guatemala.
I was going to say Guatemalan child.
Well, maybe it was a grandmother-grandchild project.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
That's nice.
It definitely feels like it could be from Goop and have a weird smell that we don't want to know what it is. So.
Either way, it involved micro funding women forward.
Right.
Business.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But also she flies down there every once in a while to tell them they need to make more. Yeah. Been thinking about weaving examples actually, because there are a bunch of them in this thing, getting ready to teach the new class about it. I
just put my copy underneath the computer to prop it up a little higher, about 3.5 inches higher. It's a thick one.
Isn't there a new translation coming out?
As a matter of fact, so there is. It is not going to be published for a few months, but I managed to finagle a review copy. So,
wow.
Which is
it looks like the Mario Puzo font.
Yeah, it does
kind of the Mario Puzo font. Although, and actually, even the Godfather illustration would kind of be good for that. But the strings, the puppet strings. But yeah, it's all right. Mostly what I know about it so far is it makes a nice, satisfying thud, when you heft it onto the table. But I read the first section of the first chapter of this translation, and I will say it's. It starts out with like the penguin starts out with commodities, the wealth takes the form of commodities and all societies where the capitalist mode of production prevails. This one says in all societies that are dominated by the capitalist mode of production. So I actually like that a little bit better. But there are other places where I think they're being like way too finicky about the word choices, and it doesn't flow as well. So
I assume you're checking it word for word against the original German, as one.
Yeah, as one does, or at least as one might if one remembered one's high school German better than I do.
Yeah.
What you aren't following along with the manuscript version, right? All of Marx's handwritten annotations.
I believe it's a scroll that you keep in the park. Right? That's how. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've got a Guatemalan family here who keeps it for me.
Oh gosh.
It's that Patreon money goes further than you think.
I am. I'm probably going to interview the editors of that.
So, nice.
So
yeah,
it's going to be
cool. the Pauls,
the double Paul, and
it's actually a triple Paul too, because it's translated by the Paul, and both of the editors are Pauls.
That something is reeking here of, nepotism. I'm not so sure about this.
Although a strange sort of nepotism where they all have the same first name instead of the same last name.
Well, clearly it's some kind of.
I assumed it was a last name thing.
No.
Right. Like, is this being run out of the Vatican?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
Or it's the scene of Goodfellas where all of the men are named Paul and all
Hey,
of
it's
the women.
Paulie and Big Paulie and Paulie Big Nose.
Is this the one with the Heinrich commentary or not?
There's no Heinrich in this. I did see there's like the editorial board, which is kind of funny. Books don't usually have those, but there's the
Bible does, and this is our Bible.
Exactly.
But as far as notable Marxy people, I do see Saito on the editorial board listed on the first page. And
that means you're not going to get any of the Engels commentary except with like little pokes at him. Okay, never mind. It's an in-joke.
And there's a afterword by William Clare Roberts. So and weirdly enough, actually, I wouldn't think of these two as going together, but there's a forward by Wendy Brown. So make of that what you will.
That's wild. Like actually, Wendy Brown writing the forward is like, it'd be like if I don't know. I'm gonna miss the snarky ass Ernst Mandel commentary, and you know that we're nerds when we start caring about what commentary we have with our version of fucking Capital. But whatever. Like it's very
I mean, you sound a little like a schoolboy that has a favorite rabbi or pastor.
Yeah. You wanted to say yeshiva. It's fine. I'll say it for you.
Yeah, I was about to say this is very Talmudic, so we could just like own up to it here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I gotta have the so Ernest Mandel is like the Rashi figure for Capital. Yeah, I like it.
I mean, I can't get this excited unless there's pictographs involved. My brain is not hasn't gone through that full literarification where I can get excited enough about letters.
Isn't there Karl Marx's Capital, the comic book somewhere? I believe I saw that once.
A priori, I'm 100% certain that exists.
Yeah.
like I'm pretty sure it's Japanese
like
too.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God! I didn't even realize you. I mean, I just bet in general. I'm sure that a Capital graphic novel exists. It could not, but they have there's probably like a Japanese pornographic comic book of Capital somehow.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
1,000%.
Capital Yaoi.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have actually found some really compelling homespun, if you will, Japanese Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels Mpreg comics, which if you don't know what that is, I'll let you Google that yourself. But definitely
preserve some discovery for our valued listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah. A whole new world for you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, maybe we should get back to the sexual revolution.
Yeah. This has gotten too creepy. It's much better to go back to the sexual revolution. So, So it's been a couple weeks since we watched most of this. Although I also think somebody tuning in cold will be able to get a feel for the lay of the land pretty quickly. So you have 5 people on the screen, counting Barry Weiss, who's moderating.
Kind of. Who's moderating, kind of.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not as much of a clusterfuck as far as moderation as quite a few things that we've watched on here. But I think that's mostly because the combatants themselves are reasonably well behaved. Like not really because Barry is doing much, but in any case, the four actual debaters, sort of, are Anna from Red Scare, Anna Karkachian, who is, does actually, by this point we're going to start watching, she is doing some actual debating. Mostly she was just kind of doing like roasting earlier in the debate. And I mean, literally like some ancient Comedy Central roast of. It's like, oh yeah, I see Grimes is here, right? Like it kind of on that level. And then Grimes, as mentioned, who is sort of adorably scattered and spends a lot of time apologizing for the fact that she's bad at public speaking. But who I will say, I think Kuba convinced me last time to pay more attention than I probably did when I was watching this the first time to the actual content of what she does say in between all of that, where she actually, she actually does say some interesting things. She's the one who gets closest to sort of acknowledging that material reality is a factor in all of the subjects they're talking about.
There's a political economist on the table,
which is kind of terrifying, but also true.
It is. I mean, I think where we cut off at the end, she was starting to talk about how we should let moms skip ahead in line.
but not ahead of the troops.
Okay.
Troops, moms, everybody else.
Unless there are mom troops.
Ooh.
Then they get to go ahead, unless they're traveling with other moms and or troops.
They also have to administer the line, I think.
I mean, the mom troops should be able to get on before the flight crew.
As long as they've brought cookies for the flight crew.
Yes.
and crocheted headwear. Absolutely.
Exactly. Then we have the two people who came prepared to actually have a debate, who are Sarah Hayter and Louise Perry. So
the Muslim crypto atheist and the
atheist
agnostic crypto Christian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, that didn't come out. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So Sarah Hayter is, she's like a IDW kind of person. She has numerous views. Actually, after I, saw this in person, I started following her on Twitter for a while. I think I've unfollowed since, and she has numerous obnoxious IDW-ish views, but most of what she's arguing in this debate seems, broadly correct to me. That it's the liberalization of the liberalization of sexual norms following the introduction of birth control and legal equality is a good thing.
She scored a really big point just with the prohibition of marital rape, right? That
right.
I don't really understand why the debate continued after that. It's like that alone,
that would be a fine stopping point.
Yeah, that should have been the point where there was like a little table of judges who decided that she'd won by points, and it was over.
Yep, pull the plug.
Yeah, shut it down. So this is been watching old 30 Rock. They keep on making shut it down jokes, but in any case, it's and her point in particular was that's like, oh, you're gonna say that like the sexual revolution is like bad because hookup culture pressures young women to have too much sex. Like, okay, how about marital rape? Right? Like this is part of the package of like the era that
I'll see your regrettable hookup, and I'll raise you a marital rape.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
Exactly.
weird that no one's brought up that the sexual revolution has allowed for lesbian and gay women to live out comfortably as well. This seems to be a very, very heteronormative sort of debate as well.
It's because everyone involved is IDW except Grimes.
Yeah,
literally,
yeah, more or less. And I think Barry Weiss is even a lesbian, but yeah. Which I think she does sort of make a reference to in passing at one point, but you can like really blink and miss it.
Wow, that one did not set off my radar whatsoever. Okay, I guess it's all of her other shitty opinions, like
sure.
My ideas about her, but okay, cool.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, being a lesbian isn't really an opinion, Jordan. Like that's just a,
That's
thing
that's
about-
your opinion, Ben.
okay. But yeah, and then the fourth person as mentioned is Louise Perry, who is nominally, I think, an agnostic, as Kuba said, but seems to think the things that a pretty intense Christian would think about this.
I mean, she's almost a Sede Vaticanist without Christ, which is a really interesting position to hold. Like, the Pope is a dirty commie, but the glory of the Catholic Church. But I don't actually believe in God, which I guess would also be the
Jordan
same
Peterson
for most.
Special.
Yeah,
exactly.
more or less.
Exactly. If you ask me if I believe in God, I will answer you in a paragraph that does not contain yes or no. Like
Jordan Peterson style. Yeah. Perfect. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Confirmed. Just made sure that I wasn't making that up. Barry Weiss is married to a woman, but in any case, yeah. So Louise Perry said at one point earlier that she doesn't want to ban birth control. She even said she doesn't want to ban abortion, although she also sort of gave an explanation of it. That I think Kuba made this point last time.
She doesn't want to ban abortion today.
Exactly.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, her explanation of why she doesn't want to ban abortion today definitely made it sound like tomorrow is still on the table.
Yeah, it's very much a wither the abortion argument,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And she said that she doesn't want to ban birth control, but she does want people to act as if it didn't exist.
That one's really stuck with me. Every time I take my pill at night, I think,
okay, but try to forget that you just did that.
Yeah.
Get just as panicky. Yeah.
First take the pill, then you have to roofie yourself so that you've forgotten that you've taken it. Right? See? The pharmaceutical industry giveth, the pharmaceutical industry taketh away.
I've just been putting it in like a handful of other pills and kind of like shaking them around and taking them all at the same time. So
I was about to make a joke that was too off color even for this show. So
you're gonna have to share that one with us later because
something eternal sunshine of the spotting something.
Oh, okay, I got you. Very nice. Yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay, well, I think we're all lubed up and ready to go for this guy.
Yeah. Which is also, I wasn't going to say, like, I thought basically my take on that. Well, my take the first time in this debate, which I think has been modified a little bit because Kuba convinced me last time that, Grimes is making more good points than I'd registered the first time around. But my original take on the debate was that Sarah Hayter's position was sort of correct as far as it went, but really frustrating because she was pretending that, like economics don't exist. And which, everybody on the stage, except sometimes Grimes for some reason, was. And so, for example, I thought besides the thing about about marital rape, I thought the other sort of really powerful point that she'd made was that, the change in sexual norms under discussion, like one of the big effects is that there's so much less stigma about birth outside of marriage that it actually was, if this is a thing that you want, as one would think, social conservatives would, that there are far more, children being raised by their original moms, than because you don't have this sort of pressure to give them, quietly give them up for adoption and pretend that it never happened. Everybody's seen the second season of Mad Men, but yeah.
I think what conservatives really want is for the maximum amount of children to be raised with the maximum amount of reluctant mothers feeling terrible about themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Fair
I was
enough.
going to say housewives, but I guess they're kind of synonymous. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, on that note, this is, I think, just before where we left off. Maybe,
Look at her,
although when I
she's
go
so
to
cute.
And okay, one of the things that you can't blame on bureaucracy or bad manners is porn. Okay, the late Andrea Dworkin, I saw a lot of people cheering when she came up on the screen before, said a lot of amazingly memorable things. One of them was this: the new pornography is a vast graveyard where the left has gone to die. The left cannot have its horrors and its politics too. And what she meant by it, of course, is there's no way to make feminist porn or ethical porn, that porn in and of itself is unethical and anti-feminist. Louise has said before that anyone who calls themselves a feminist cannot in good faith watch porn and shouldn't let their husbands watch it either. Sarah or Grimes, just either of you want to respond to that? Is porn part of the cost of the sexual revolution? Is it even a bad cost?
Why don't you go first?
Well, we've had porn for a long time. Like we've had porn for like in the French Revolution and stuff. Like we've just always had porn. It's just like digital life makes it a lot easier to access it. But like this is like you can go look at like ancient sites. Like people have been drawing. Porn has existed for a long time. I still think porn. It's a little weird. I think it's kind of bad. I'd probably be happier without it. I wouldn't want my kids to see it. I think it probably harms relationships, but still, also we could be making better porn. Like literally, like why is the script so bad? Why is the music bad? Like why are the cameras bad? Like beautiful cinematic porn. Like why am I not seeing Antony and Cleopatra? Like with the Shakespeare, with like anamorphic lenses, beautiful, great acting. Like it could be good.
I don't
The
think we can
French
top
did
that.
try that.
Sarah,
in the
one question
90s.
for you.
Well, can I touch the porn? Can I touch the porn bit? Because I feel like it's I'm not here to defend porn either. I don't want to defend porn, but I think that this is one of those times where I kind of feel like, well, the sexual revolution is being scapegoated. I understand why people connect porn with liberalization of, or destigmatization of casual sex. They're actually not related. And when you think about it for like a second, you will understand what I mean. There are many, many people around the world, millions, countries, whole countries, where there are no sexual revolutions. There's been anything like the sexual revolution, and they are watching ridiculous amounts of porn. Saudi Arabia has porn, lots of porn. Pakistan's watching porn. Egypt's watching porn.
They're watching American porn.
I mean, but that's because it was unlocked by the sexual.
No, that's not true. It's not true because it's always existed. What has happened recently is that we have the internet and we have smartphones. If you go to Victorian England and then you give them the internet and a smartphone, they will have a thriving porn industry within weeks.
Sexual revolution is part and parcel. It's a package with feminism, liberalism, whatever you want to call it. And these are primarily, if not American, then at least Anglophone exports that go out to the rest of the world. Barry, why aren't we getting the interesting questions about...
Okay. I'm a little confused by this claim that porn is an Anglophone thing. That's I really feel like this is France erasure.
Thank you. Which is not necessarily something that I always push back against.
Can we talk about the Victorians for a second? Because, like, holy shit, did they have porn? Just want to point that out, man. Like, they wouldn't show their ankles, but their literature and also comic depictions were porny as fuck. So
Absolutely.
I don't know.
I wanted to point out exactly. I mean, you brought up Victorian England. Sarah Hayter's talking about Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Like, isn't it interesting, this link of sexual repression with this, like, a surplus of sexual commodities that you can buy and interact with? Like, maybe normalizing these things is a better idea. And yeah, it's not the sexual revolution and Anglophone, imperialism that brought pornography to the world. It's the internet. Just an idea.
Well, I think that perhaps there's a staging argument which says that before that revolution comes the age of hypocrisy, right? That it could very well be that what we're looking at in Saudi Arabia, in a lot of these Orthodox Sunni societies, is their Victorian age, and they're in for a treat when they get out of it into their Great War, right? Into their interwar period. Like, I'm looking forward to Weimar Riyadh.
Me too. Can I go now? That sounds amazing. Oh, yes.
I would kind of see it on TikTok.
I'm just imagining like really beautiful sheer, like the not hijab, but the one that goes like floor head to toe.
Burqa or an abaya.
Yeah, but like in like a sheer chiffon with like sparkly sort of dangles and tassel, pasties and stuff. That's my version of Weimar Riyadh in my mind right now, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, but also when you think about like, just to be the dirty, cynical, historical realist, the equation between porn and prostitution has also been made. And I just want to point out that the Victorian period also had something like a 20% of all women were engaged in sex work during that century. The estimates of the number of sex workers in England alone was 80,000. Like,
I wonder too.
And that's the one we know about. That's what we know. I mean, that's like people who are like registered and shit. So
yeah, and I can't remember if this point has already been made by the panelists, but under conditions prior to first wave feminism, at the very least, a woman, by definition, was engaged in some kind of sex work because her only means of livelihood was to secure a marriage, which is trading away her body to a man for protection and economic resources. So it seems as though if we're focused entirely on the question of the link between the access to a livelihood of a woman and access to her body, it feels like a lot of marriage under those material conditions, under those material realities, is a form of sex work.
Also, I do have to find it funny bringing up Adriana Dorkin without admitting that she thought in some key way, because of what you're just mentioning, Kuba, that all heterosexual relations were effectively on the spectrum of rape. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And she's
like,
on the spectrum of kind of fringe thought, but it's certainly important to center that.
And the mainstreaming of her for liberal audiences.
It's really weird, right?
It's kind of weird. Yeah.
It's pretty weird.
I mean, it was a big thing in the aughts. I mean, you remember like
forgive
Ariel,
me for saying it.
Face?
But
yeah.
This debate may have benefited from maybe a single penis on stage.
I thought we talked about the void last time, and that what that void is, and like it's full of that.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think you should take your penis out on stage. That's just me. But I think it's bad debate etiquette. But in any case,
clearly a man designed the furnishings on the set, and that didn't turn out very well. So I don't know about that.
Yeah. I mean, like the two positions here are sort of, generic sexual liberalism and kind of old timey Puritanism of the like it's marriage is better kind of stuff, which of course the Andrea Dworkin position is very, very unlike either of those, right? So it's like a little bit, I mean, I guess maybe this is just rephrasing the point you're just making, but I mean this is it's very weird to bring her up without acknowledging that what she thought doesn't map on to anything that anybody is saying right now, one way or the other, right? Like, I don't think that, I don't think that, I mean, Louise Perry certainly doesn't think, heterosexual sex is rape. She thinks that, everybody should be just having it in the context of, holy matrimony, or, whatever we're calling it, if we're taking seriously the idea that she actually is an agnostic. But
Jungian inspired matrimony about the archetype of the non-existent God that we think is super important for some reason. I don't know. Like, I'm just riffing here.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, now I will also admit all I've been thinking about for the last 5 minutes is a version of the movie Cabaret where everybody is in like Saudi robes.
I'm telling you, it's like my new favorite aesthetic, frankly. God damn. Those rooms with the padded floors and all of the pillows, they're just begging for orgies. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, actually, I think that making a version of Cabaret set in contemporary Saudi Arabia, apart from the fact that MBS would probably try to get it shut down and may or may not have you killed or enslaved, would be the coolest thing ever.
As long as Liza Minnelli is still the star, I'm 100% into that. Yes.
AI Liza Minnelli, but whatever.
I guess you guys are like claiming that Mia Khalifa is the prophet of our time, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Like,
go that far.
She's not a prophet. She's more of an occulted imam.
Okay, let's go back to this.
Do you want one now?
Yeah.
Here's one right now.
I think I will defend porn. I think the big problem with porn isn't that it's exploitative or immoral or unchristian, though it may well be those things. It's that it eliminates all the risk of sex in favor of like low stakes instant gratification. God doesn't want you to hear me. It's like phones, video games, whatever. It becomes like a surrogate activity for participation in real life. And it also becomes increasingly inseparable from real life. So I think if you're going to argue against porn, it should be on those grounds, or else you're sort of just telling on yourself. That's my 2 cents.
Louise, do you want to get into porn, or can I give you a different question?
I'll just say briefly that, like, Dworkin was completely bananas, but she was right about porn.
One of the things, I think one thing everyone on this stage has in common is none of us would get up here and make the argument that we should limit free speech because neo-Nazis and bigots also use speech. And I think you can make the argument that so too, should we not get rid of sexual freedom just because some people have bad experiences with sexual freedom? I would love for you two to contend with that a little bit. The argument seems to be that we need to somehow, although you haven't quite said how, restrict choice in some way, or at least re-stigmatize, or maybe bring back shame a little bit. And I just want to have you fill in that argument a little bit more, if you would. In addition to pretending like the pill doesn't exist, what are other things we should do, Louise, in addition to not allowing our significant others to watch porn?
I mean, I have a long laundry list of things I think the UK government should do, but this maybe isn't the venue for those. I think that the idea of, we don't really live in a free sexual culture, right? I mean, Sarah talked at the beginning about women in the past, before orgasms were invented, having painful, unwanted sex. Women are still having painful, unwanted sex. It's just having painful, unwanted anal sex. Like, that's basically the only difference. I'm serious. Like, the number of teenagers who are having, like, thoroughly miserable sexual experiences in the name of liberation is astonishing. I think we've basically just seen a flip. It used to be they were stigmatized for being sluts, and now they're stigmatized for being prudes. It's the same thing. The idea that we're experiencing freedom now, the idea that we could experience freedom, I think the nature of human beings is that actually we are social beings. Sex is a relational thing. Like, one's behavior and preferences necessarily impact on other people. There's a line from another Englishman, which I think about a lot, which is R.H. Tawney, the historian, who said, freedom for the pike is death for the minnow. And I think that what we're experiencing in our apparently freer culture is actually all that we've done is kind of cleared the way for a lot of pikes, which has produced the ruination of a lot of minnows, because that's actually how power operates, and that's how freedom really operates. So I think to
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, I can repeat it, and then I want to go to another one, but quickly. In the same way, well, I asked two things. The first thing I asked is, just as none of us, I don't think, would stand up here and argue that we should somehow restrict freedom of speech because bad people get to use speech, so too you could make the argument that just because some people have bad sexual experiences, you shouldn't actually restrict sexual freedom for those people. And I wanted you guys to sort of fill in a little bit your vision of the way we get back to sanity, the way we get back to morality, the way we get back to a world post all of these technological changes that you that you accept, in fact, that you agree have made your lives possible. Like, what changes would you actually want to see made? Louise has written about, yeah, go ahead.
I'm not convinced that the change will come from going around, lecturing young women on how to avoid our past mistakes. I think we have to teach young women to accept that what the previous generations of women have sued for has come to pass. With great freedom comes great responsibility. What does that mean? You have to take responsibility for your actions. You have to gain an intuition to take accountability. That means you have to have what Laura Kipnis called life experience. And unfortunately, a lot of awkward and uncomfortable sex falls under that rubric. So you have to kind of proceed at your risk. That's my feeling about it. How do you teach young women to take accountability, responsibility for themselves?
Two last questions before we get to the closing statements.
Pause.
There's so much there. Oh my God. One, that pikes and minnows is funny because freedom for the wolves is death to sheep is Isaiah Berlin, and I think they just didn't want to go that old school liberal and actually mention the original quote that was being played off on there.
Right.
I hate to give Anna credit for having a reasonable stance, but she is correct that most people
there. Who among us had like amazing sexual experiences as a teenager anyway? And at what point was that like a generational issue? Give me a fucking break.
The other kind of astounding thing, again, I mean, they were talking about anal sex, for example. Stats on that indicate that a lot of people who are having that are the kinds of people that Larice is culturally celebrating. Just want to put that out there. And the other irony is, do these people think Zoomers have a lot of sex? Because there's no stats that I've seen that actually indicate that.
Quite the contrary.
Absolutely.
If you wanted to complain about porn, you could actually complain about them not having relations because they watch too much porn. That would actually be a more truthful argument, probably.
To be fair, Anna did kind of gesture at that at one point for like 3 seconds.
Right.
Although I think she maybe realized it didn't go with her overall side of the debate.
Right. Isn't it a really telling thing when after your debate mate has given a long-winded answer to a question, you have to ask it, what was the question?
Yeah.
I mean, she gave a really great answer.
I want to get back to the pike and minnows thing.
Yes.
Because I find it particularly something that the person who is nominally on the team for traditional authority and the good old days acts as though this is the moment where groomers and predators are empowered to go after the weak and the vulnerable, right? Because the weak and the vulnerable have been seduced.
Thing is that even in terms of the contemporary world, let's just, we don't have to linger on this, but like, traditional religious institutions with lots of patriarchy and authority are notoriously places where there's no sexual predation.
Precisely. I think the Pikes were having a great time when the rules were much more in Louise's liking, and that this is not the sexual revolution. If anything, has likely made it easier to confront predators by reducing the stigma of admitting that you were a victim of sexual assault.
Yeah.
Right? For a long time, the very same principles that for Luis are supposed to be the guarantors of proper pro-feminist, pro-female, pro-vulnerable social behavior, they're the things that got in the way, that prevented any kind of legal accountability, that prevented any kind of stigma to fall on the perpetrators. So
let's talk about biblical marriage for a second, because that word actually doesn't exist in most of the Old Testament. There is not a word for it. The word is his woman. There's no word for wife. The ketubah institution is actually formalized by the Talmud. It is in the Levitical law, but barely. But if you read Levitical law, what it implies pretty strongly is that what made you someone's wife is that they had sex with you. That's what did it, including rape. If you did not protest enough during the rape, you were subject to execution. If you did protest, the offender had to marry you.
Meaning he had to pay for you.
Yeah.
To your father.
Right.
Yeah.
You had to pay your bride price.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, in the biblical narrative, there is no mention of that at all. You basically just buy women or encounter them and take them. And it's pretty clear that that's what the Torah indicates. And it's, I bring this up because there's like this real romantic notion about what like religious marriage is for these people, as if like religious marriage was the nuclear semi-companionate marriage that we imagine of the 1950s.
They imagine that it's Mel Gibson and Braveheart, right?
I knew he would come up again today. Thank you so much for the continuity.
Something that never existed, like all of Braveheart. So I find this frustrating because I don't even know what tradition they really want to come back to, because frankly, what they seem to be idolizing existed maybe for 10 years, which is like broad spectrum nuclear family stuff. Like in America, that's a very brief period of time in which that is actually the normal relation.
It's true. And I think that Louise is very telling when she says that we should go back to what our grandmothers thought, right? Because that is essentially the limit.
Those 10 years.
Precisely. And the limit of anybody's imagination of history, right? You go earlier than that, and any generalization that's made by somebody on this panel could just stand, right?
My grandmother didn't think marital rape existed, and that if your man cheated on you, you were doing something wrong. Is that how I?
My grandmother was Andrea Dworkin, so
Oh wow!
No, we were in the presence.
I was going to say, I was actually wondering who Laurice's grandmother is, because I'm doing the numbers in my head, and I'm like, actually, you mean your great grandmother?
Yeah. Your
grandmother's a boomer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just reading. So Ed Broadbent, who used to be the head of the NDP, the Social Democratic Party in Canada, he wrote a book. It was published maybe posthumously or just before he died, called Seeking Social Democracy, where it's sort of a semi-memoir with conversations with few interlocutors, one of whom is Luke Savage, which is how I book came on my radar. But in there, actually, part I just read, he just sort of casually mentions that, he was an old guy when he died, like last year, but not that old. That when one of the first NDP conventions he was at, one of the pieces of policy that they were discussing to add to the platform was essentially banning marital rape. Since in Canada that was legal that recently, right? And yeah, I mean,
in Switzerland, where the franchise is granted by a general democratic plebiscite, it took until 1972 for women to receive the vote. And that means that the people holding them down, holding them back, were literally their fathers, brothers, husbands, and sons, because those were the people voting against extending the franchise. 1972, Switzerland.
To put it in in Switzerland, to put it in the context for America, all the southern states didn't get rid of their marital exceptions to rape laws until 1993. The process began in 1970, between 73 and 76, and it took over 20 years to get all the states to pass laws making it illegal. So just to note that this is not that old, and it's actually significantly post sexual revolution when it happened. So, just to point that out too.
Yeah.
The last thing that I'll say that really annoyed me is that Barry Weiss seemed to press Anna for a more concrete answer of what is it that you would recommend we do? What ideas are you putting forward with what changes? And she didn't ask that of what's her face, but she also didn't get an answer the second time around, other than it's not going to happen by just talking. But the other thing is we need to talk to young women and to tell them better ideas. So I don't know.
Yeah. So Louise Perry, that was basically her original question for the both of them. And then Louise Perry, for whatever reason, decided not to answer. Which is interesting because I believe, right, like her answers, she wrote a book. I think it has a bunch of them in it. Right. But she said this weird thing where she was like, well, I have all these ideas about what the UK government should do, but maybe this isn't the time for them. It's like, well, hold on. So you think that the US government shouldn't do the same? Why don't we hear the UK ones? Right. Like, and it doesn't, like, how specific are these going to be? Right. There's this only.
Yeah, no, you're being way too charitable there. It's not, this isn't the time because this is an American audience. It's like, this isn't the time because they need to be kept secret until we have secured power and there's no going back.
True, definitely. And I'm sure she could easily just fall back on an excuse that, British and American culture is very different. So
yeah,
they would have different answers.
I will say, I know for a fact, because I asked her this in so many words, that one of her answers is abolishing no-fault divorce. So that seems like it would have been a fairly spicy thing to say if she'd said it in the debate. But yeah, she decided at this sort of crucial moment to be coy about it, which is just kind of, I don't really understand the point of going up and having a public argument about something and also keeping your position secret.
So you want more dead from domestic abuse wives and more dead husbands from being poisoned. That's what we want. So yeah, I mean, like just be honest about the implications of what people say when they talk about getting rid of no-fault divorce. Like,
yeah, totally. And a lot more people lying in court, like people used to have to all the time, right? Because somebody had to, you had to say somebody had an affair or done something, right? Or else even if both of you really wanted out of it, you couldn't get out. That was, certainly the case, it's a, I think I actually mentioned this last time. I mean, I know for a fact that my grandfather, who, my experience is a very honest person. I'm sure it was like a painful thing to have to do, took the bullet when he and his first wife decided to get divorced and like got up in court and like falsely claimed to have had an affair because like that was the only way they'd be allowed to do it. So, that seems bad to me. I also note that all that stuff about the Pikes and the minnows and all of that stuff didn't, which, yes, I obviously agree with Kuba's point. And I'd also point out here that just the amount of sexual abuse that happens in every sort of very hierarchical traditionalist religious organization is through the charts. People focus on the papists here. They certainly deserve the bad rap they've got on this point, but they're not unique. There are plenty of Southern Baptist pedophilia scandals. There's plenty of Hasidic ones. Take your pick, right?
Honestly, the pressure into anal sex also made me think of Mormons more than like young people.
No, they soak.
Oh yeah, there's that as well.
They do what?
Look it up. Look it up. Google it. Urban Dictionary.
But it's also, remember that this was like the original question, or what part of the original question, which neither of them pretended to answer at any point, right? Was, hold on, everybody who's here is is in favor of free speech except for Israel, and then so why don't the arguments that that you would make, like why don't the arguments that move you so little on free speech, right? That there'll be some downsides, whatever, but you have to it's the price that's worth paying for freedom, right? Why? I mean, look. Hate to give Barry Weiss credit for something, but this was actually a good question, right? Like, why doesn't this, why doesn't the structure of this also apply to liberalization of sexual norms and letting people do what they want in that regard? And there was no attempt at an answer to that. There wasn't even, they were not in the UK, weird evasion. And like the whole, surely the thing about the freedom for the Pikes is slavery for the minnows, whatever. It's like, surely somebody who wanted to make a speech is violence, anti-free speech argument could deploy the Pikes and the minnows thusly, right? So I don't, this is just a very blatantly unanswered question here.
That's how power works, she said, right? Power works like a kind of difficult to understand analogy, apparently, about fish. Thank you for that one, Louise. All right, shall we carry on and see what brilliance is coming for us now?
One of the people that I spoke to in advance of tonight's conversation is Richard Reeves. If you guys haven't read his book of Boys and Men, I recommend it. And he said this to me, which I thought was amazing. From a classical male perspective, the sexual revolution cannot go far enough. In other words, the sexual revolution suits men. It suits men in its detachment of sex and love, in its detachment of childbearing from marriage, in its normalization of porn. So, in their fight to free women from a terrible reality, did the people who pushed the sexual revolution misunderstand what women really want and need? Or does Richard Reeves have it wrong that from a classical male perspective, the sexual revolution can't go far enough? Is it caricaturing women's sexual desires to say that?
I'll question the premise a little bit. I don't think that it's a zero-sum game. I don't think that something that, even if it was true that sexual revolution was really amazing for women and really bad, really amazing for men and really bad for women, which of course I disagree with. I think it's been pretty good for women, all in all. Even if it was pretty good for women and then spectacular for men, I think that's a win. I'm still for it. I think that would be a great outcome. I think a lot of the problems that we are seeing with modern society, a lot of the problems that we're discussing here today are very much tangential to the sexual revolution, if they're related at all. There are broader problems about liberalism and about choice in the modern excess sense of the word, in the McDonald's sense of the word, that we just have too much of too many good things. That's a technology problem, that's a progress problem, but it's not something that can't be overcome without, with some education, some open dialogue and discussion. We can poo-poo it all we want, but it's not a real solution to be saying, well, progress is a problem, choice is a problem, but I'm not going to talk about what I want to restrict because I don't actually want to restrict anything. It's not really something we can move forward with, and we should be looking forward to finding a solution.
Do you guys think the sexual revolution was basically if not intentionally, but in practice engineered to suit the desires of men and not women?
Louise has very convincingly argued this point, but I myself am not so convinced. As I said in my opening statement, there was realistically only a very short time before when men could enjoy kind of an unlimited free-for-all of like loose tail. Now it's very clear that we've gone back to this kind of almost prehistoric situation where like women on dating apps compete for like the 20%, like top 20% of like alpha males, and the rest of the men are like incels or betas or whatever. I don't think men are having a particularly easy time of the sexual revolution either. You look at like the statistics for men overall, more men are single today. Many of those single men are living with their parents. Their incomes are depressed. Their outcomes are depressed. Their lives kind of suck. The other thing is like what happens when you de-incentivize normative expressions of male sexuality and make them punishable by like classically feminine modes of like reputational damage or character assassination. That also selects for
what side is she on again?
And perverts and guys with humiliation kinks.
IDW.
So I think overall the situation is not at all to the benefit of most men.
Okay, last question before we get to closing arguments. I want 30 seconds from all of you. As Grimes mentioned in her opening statement, you're not.
No, other than telling Bayer Weiss to shut the fuck up, which is just vindicating for me. I guess it's a expression of my inner misogyny somewhere. But the thing about, I actually do think Anna has kind of an interesting point that's underexplored about like incel culture and pickup artist culture, which is related to incel culture, and the way this was sold to a certain group of men, and the way that's gone very poorly for a whole lot. I mean, I think that is a real issue that like has just got brought up almost as a tangent, but it doesn't really support her side of the argument at all either. I guess maybe she's crypto making the Jordan Peterson argument that like if we made everyone get married first and we made them be monogamous, that like somehow men would not have mistresses and shit, and there would, and everything would just work out in perfectly aligned numbers, and also queer people would go away and would be in a magical heterosexual like world of straight unicorns. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out like what she's arguing there.
That's just ridiculous. All unicorns are gay.
Yeah. Okay. But the I mean, I'm serious, because she's also complaining about traditional modes of feminine rapprochement against men, such as public shaming and whatnot. And I'm like, well, do you think that's going to go away when you undo the sexual revolution? Like, I'm not even sure what you're fucking arguing at this point.
No, what Anna is pointing out, right? And I think that she's expressed ambivalence in terms of which side of the debate she's on, and she's sort of refused to play along. But I think her point is that in this particular moment, it's not that you need to undo the sexual revolution to get into Louise's good old days, but that we're in a novel situation, which is nothing at all like the caricature of Good Times and Loose Tail that Louise tries to present of what the experience is right now in the like sexual society for men. A lot of people have pointed out that if you think income inequality is bad, ... right? Look at the inequality in terms of other outcomes among men in this, nominally free, liberalized market.
Dating app culture does not favor men. And like I said, I'm saying this like as like I'm totally a believer in the problems of the patriarchy. I'm not like saying that it's great for women either. In fact, it seems to be pretty shitty for everyone because women are over pursued and men feel like they're throwing stuff into the void and it goes nowhere. And given the number of divorced dads in my life, oh my God, do I hear it nonstop about this shit all the time? But I feel bad for them, and I feel bad for the women on those apps too. Like the behavior spirals. I mean, I see it, but it's not because like men are getting a lot of like it's just a sexually licentious world in which like everyone's getting everything. If anything, one of the more disturbing elements of post 2020 porn, and I refuse to use TikTok code and call it corn or whatever the fuck people are doing these days. Yeah,
whatever
TikTok code.
The puck, please.
Yeah, whatever the puck.
Okay.
There's this way in which Zoomers talk, Ben. I know you know a few of them, but like maybe not that many. And they have developed a patois to get around the censors on TikTok and Instagram.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so like
also euphemisms are less triggering for some reason, even though we still know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah. Whatever. Generation weak down there. So like you know what? I'll give them credit. At least they're getting beat by cops now. So, you know, they're going to toughen up pretty quickly. The whole situation though, it just seems like there's a nightmare world in all this, and we're actually not talking about the actual nightmare world. We're making one up. Like it's like there are things to say about the current state of whatever the sexual revolution is today.
Yeah.
In quotation marks. I feel like we actually live in a very regressive moment. But the horrifying thing for me that I was about to get to is porn on OnlyFans simulates a relationship in a way that I find disturbing. And you can mock me as old man, and Jordan, you know, I give everyone permission here to mock me as the old guy. For those of you who think I somehow Ben's son, I'm only a year younger than him.
If you're old, I'm only 10 years younger than old, so that doesn't really help me either.
Yeah, I know, but you are, and you're not a Zoomer, but you're an actual true millennial as opposed to me, who's a dirty like.
Xennial.
I'm a traitor to both generations.
Yeah, I've been. So I've heard Xennial, I've heard Oregon Trail generation. The label that best fits my own sense of self-loathing that I've seen is geriatric millennial.
Yes, geriatric millennial. I would also make you a spry Gen Xer though. So
ooh,
I mean,
there you go.
Like, you know, the boomers still call you young man. So
yeah, they do. But boomers will call you young man until you're like 80.
They call one another young man because they think it's cute and coy. Yeah, it's true. I saw it happen the other day.
Well, now that my son is of age, I just call him Varn. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So
get out of my house.
Leave. We haven't achieved communism yet. You can't stay here.
Right. Well, I wanted to mention that with all of the conversation around dating apps and who benefits more or who it sucks more for, I really think that it sucks quite a bit for men, but it's not any easier for the women, even though the algorithm works in their favor. What good is that? Something that hasn't been brought up like one time on the stage is the effects of the coronavirus, for one thing, on the way that we socialize. And what that's done to the younger generation in particular, but to everyone, and the disappearance of the commons. Like, where can you just go to meet people or take them out on a low stakes date? Now, dating, especially thanks to inflation, is so expensive that people are doing, if you date at all, then instead of going to a bar or to a nice restaurant or any of those kinds of, or any sort of activity like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood rom-coms, at least you go for a coffee, because that in it of itself will cost you like $8 dollars, and you see if that person is worth investing.
You predate date, because dating actually requires a financial commitment that's significant.
Absolutely,
But
and we know that. Yeah,
just have your AI surrogate show up to do the course sort.
Well, you're not wrong about that. The other thing about OnlyFans that I was going to mention, and the weird, commodification of like these, what do people like to call them? Parasocial relationships.
Parasocial, yeah. I would maybe say sub-parasocial at this point.
They are basically sub-parasocial, because half the time, if you're paying an OnlyFans account extra so that you can communicate with them, the girl that, I'm assuming who's making the video content for you to send is not the one that's responding. That is someone that she pays on the side, and it's just some random ass person who is comfortable, writing little flirty bits of text for you and spamming the same thing out to everyone. So it's not even personalized, and it's not access to the person that you see on the other side of the screen. I don't know, but none of that really seems to go hand in hand with the sexual revolution, which again, no one really defined as when that happened or started happening or ended. But that's more of today.
I'm gathering by the sexual revolution what they mean is the pill. I mean,
and for women almost exclusively, which is also not what the sexual revolution was. Just definitionally. Blah, blah.
Well, I mean, I heard all that stuff about OnlyFans, and all I could think is that I guess I am on the Perry Karkachian side on that question.
Karkachian. God, when are you going to get her name right? Not that I respect her enough to say it.
Karkachian. Carcusian.
Carpaccio.
Carpathian. Anna Carpathian.
The Carpathian Perry side, because I really disapprove of OnlyFans. I think it's a terrible waste of money that should be spent on podcasters' Patreons.
I see what you did there.
OnlyFans. It's one of the few times that something became sexualized after the fact and not immediately.
Yeah, actually, it is funny that tells you a lot about Zoomers and this supposedly sexual liberated world that they live in. That OnlyFans actually piggybacked on podcast technology, not the other way around for once.
Fair enough. Let's get back to it.
Not just for incredible women, you're also moms. All of you have young children, as do I. And I wonder if we could close on a question just about the future you want to leave for your children, not to make it too cheesy, but I'm curious. Louise set that out pretty clearly in the end of her book. She says, listen to your mom, which maybe will be her answer here. But what is sort of a healthy sexual culture that you want your children to live in? I would love, Louise, to start with you, and let's just do a quick round robin, 20 or 30 seconds each.
I don't have any. I basically think that most grandmothers are pretty much right about all of this stuff, and you can ask any given woman in her 70s or 80s, and she'll probably give you a fairly good answer to this. We have conducted a very radical social experiment. I mean, it had it conducted on us, really. It's just a consequence of material factors, really. No one designed this, really. Hugh Hefner really enjoyed the sexual revolution, but he didn't really engineer it. And I think what we're experiencing, what I suspect we are entering into, is an era of reconstruction, an era of people realizing that actually trying to have a kind of vacuum in place of a sexual culture doesn't work, and a process of reconstructing from first principles what our grandmothers could have told us if we'd bothered to listen.
What world do you want your kids to grow up in when it comes to the sexual culture?
I mean, I just hope they really like the people they're dating. I hate to. It's a tricky one. I just feel like we're gonna have AI girlfriends and stuff. It's gonna be so crazy by then. I can't even fathom. I feel like everything we're talking about now, we're not even women might be obsolete in 5 years. Just to be clear. I hope not, but I hope living women still have a chance in the future.
I just hope that my son can feel confident and secure in his masculinity, which in turn will make him act honorably and with respect toward women. And that probably comes down to listening to his grandmother and also me, his mother. Grimes mentioned early on about a return to more kind of communal arrangements, family living arrangements, which freaked me out because, we have that famous statistic of, that children living with one genetic parent and one step parent are something like 40 times more likely to suffer physical abuse. So you can imagine that the numbers probably either stay the same or go up for sexual abuse. And you can imagine how that scales when you're living in a weird Bushwick trap house. But
nice.
On the other hand, I really do like the idea that she brings up that other feminists have argued for, which is the idea of a return to an extended clan.
Sarah?
I like that. Yeah. Return to an extended clan, I think, is a great solution to a lot of problems. And there is a way in which modern society can facilitate it. Very, very modern. I mean, work from home saw a lot of people return literally back to their hometowns and spend more time with their families. I think that was wonderful. That's one way in which you can have a modern society with some choice and go back to the things that make us strong. I hope my son is able to, experience the world openly, but also, choice is wonderful. I've been arguing for choice this whole time, but I think it really isn't enough. And I think that's what we're facing here today. And while we're talking, it isn't enough. And I hope he's able to, discover a little bit of what could give life meaning. I think that is family. I think that is community. I think that is something we can prioritize while allowing us choice.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Just want to shout out Jeremy in the chat says weird amount of cheering. I've got to say, I realize that this is like the lamest, cringiest reference I could possibly make, but I'm going to make it anyway. The pattern of stuff that got cheered on this rewatch, I kept thinking of that Rick and Morty episode where people are booing and Rick says, your boos mean nothing to me. I've seen what you people cheer.
It's been a little bit disturbing, and not even in a consistently reactionary way, but in like a fucking what way? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's schizo cheering.
Yeah,
you bring the loudest crew to the audience and then talk about Bushwick trap houses, and I just find that incredibly, self-defeating. But whatever.
Also, yeah, I was about to talk about the studies on step parents and then communal child rearing, because step parents' abuse of children is higher. It's significantly. I don't think it's 40 times higher. I was trying to actually find that data, but
yes,
but it is higher. It's significantly higher. But it's high even amongst non-step parents.
And then what do you do? No divorce, because their step parent might also do it too.
And also, not all step parents result from divorce, right? People are widowed or become widowers. Like
shit.
Presumably, from like a traditionalist perspective, getting remarried is good, right?
But I was gonna talk about her argument about the trap house part of that is actually the societies with a bunch of allo parents, which are non-biological parents in the society. You actually see marked reduction of step parent and parents about abuse of children, because there's a lot of people fucking watching, whereas right now there is not. And so I was actually it was funny because until Anna said that, I'm like, I kind of agree with you. I'm confused and I feel weird and dirty inside. But then because I was like, yeah, if you teach men how to be comfortable in themselves, they'll probably treat women better too. I mean, like, I actually think that's a fair enough point. It's not like all the incels I know are both are particularly good with women, nor are they particularly self-respecting. So I actually kind of agree with that. But that weird part about step parents and biological parents, there's some truth to it. But the way she expands that out is kind of ridiculous. But then she agrees with Grimes anyway, so I just don't. I feel like Anna is just a troll. Like I honestly feel like
that's why she's sitting on the no side, because she's just antagonistic in her core. That's all it is.
Yeah.
She also seems to want to fight with Louise Perry too, but
she's the Turd Ferguson of this particular Celebrity Jeopardy.
That's awesome. I also wanted to say that when Grimes lifted up both of her arms before, for some reason, I wasn't really sure why, I realized that she's dressed like a bohemian jellyfish. That must be the look today. Keep your eyes open. You'll see it too. I don't know what that means symbolically, but certainly something very important that only real women and not AI women can do. So thank you, Grimes.
Well, I mean, probably for now, right? This is the, I mean, they can't even get the fingers right in AI.
I think, but there's going to be an NFT for that.
Yeah, but okay, you guys are going to make me a Luddite. By the end of this conversation, I'm going to be a reactionary. Like it's just gonna be like
for a variety of reasons, I'm actually pretty comfortable with the Butlerian jihad against AI development. But in any case, when
it comes to the Butlerian jihad, no ifs, ands, or buts. Team AI, all the way.
I'm gonna tell your wife that. Just saying.
Oh no, she knows. She knows. We're hedging our bets. It's the only smart way to play this.
We always knew Deep State was a traitor.
Round of applause for all of our participants. Okay, now, if this is possible with the people manning the time clock, I think we should put 1 minute on the clock for each of these closing statements, because I know we're super behind. If that's not possible, we will try as much as we can to keep it to 1 minute. So each of you is going to have 1 minute, maybe a minute and a half, to make the most compelling closing argument you can make. And the bell will ring at the end of that time. We're going to go in the order we began with. Louise Perry, you are up.
So I'm going to make the provocative argument that I think that social guardrails are actually a good thing. I think that social norms are actually a good thing. I don't think that we can have a cultural, moral vacuum and expect it to last very long. I think we should expect probably worse and more chaotic things to fill the gap. There are always going to be outliers. There are always going to be exceptions. There are always going to be trade-offs. I think a fundamentally tragic outlook on life is the correct outlook. But my argument is that I think that if you are going to live a radical subversive life like the 1960s children tell you to, you should have an extraordinarily good reason to do so. And actually, most people will fare far better by obeying the wisdom of just being a boring normie and trying to get married and trying to have kids and trying to live in suburban stability and affluence. Like, the vast majority of people actually fare best if that is basically the aspiration, and we don't just try and tear things down every generation and hope for the best.
We don't need to pause at every single one of these, but I really can't.
That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard.
I really can't not pause on this because, like, kind of easy to miss it, but it's like in all the ways she's saying you should try to be a boring normie. Okay, you should try to get married, try to have kids, and live in the suburbs and affluence. It's like, oh, is that up to you?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so we're gonna all live Louise Perry's lifestyle, which is totally affordable for most people. Totes, you know, and what was it I was seeing? I mean, even it was a ridiculous stat, but like the if you wanted to have 30% discretionary income and 20% savings, and have a family of 4, you need to earn in any state in the union over $190,000, which admittedly, I think is a little inflated because no one has 30% discretionary income unless you already make over $200,000 a year. But it does seem insane to be arguing that, you know, the entire planet should basically live literally like it's the 1950s. Like, I mean, we were just talking about this. So
I'm sorry. Can you please pull up the comment, be a boring normie by dressing like a green peppermint? I just love that so much. It actually made me lose my shit right now. I was gonna say something smarter, but honestly, like, first of all, I just want to call back to something Kuba said in the first part, which is like, you haven't convinced me why your way is the right way or better way, or why do I need to follow your path? And this time she also said, like, basically, if you're not going to conform, you better have a really good goddamn reason why not. And like, why? Who said so? What dictates that? And why is listening to the wisdom of the ages going to get you to any better results than trying something else? Like, how is the status quo different now and then beyond just the way we conceive of things? Like,
yeah, exactly. Who died and made the homeowners association the like block Führer?
Peppermint Patty over here.
I mean, look. The peppermint patty outfit's actually kind of working for me, but they that's, you know, but you know,
it's
I just want to point out
trousers and the flats that it's not working. There are ways to style that shirt.
If I hear one more thing about her conservative grandparents, I'm going to go a little bit nuts because I just figured out how old she is. She was born in 1992. Her fucking parents, her grandparents, a baby boomer. There's no way that she's going to be like, well, you know, in the 1930s, everything was great. And like, we had no problem with men. And it's just, I can't take it seriously.
Her grandmother was a deadhead, but she pretends not to be when she's talking to Louise.
This is the only way she actually takes my calls.
Exactly. It's just like, again, just brass tacks. Like, I can understand in Louise Perry's view of the world that she thinks, you know, people are choosing not to get married. People are choosing not to have children. And these things are bad. But I can't understand, even in her view of the world, how it is that she thinks that people are just choosing not to have this like suburban homeowner affluence. That it's like you think like people are going to their boss and be like, oh no, please pay me less.
She's wearing a stop being poor tank top under that because she loves hiding how she really feels, obviously.
It's, you know,
I want to point out she's married to a cop.
But it's like, no, but you don't. I mean, if anything, right? I mean, to Varn's point, like, look, it's not that like if people chose to get married and have kids, then the affluence would somehow follow. If anything, quite the contrary, right? Like, I mean, the kids are really expensive, you know, especially in this country. So it's just like this is like the Matt Brunig point about the success sequence, something that like a lot of conservatives love, which they say, oh, well, if you people are poor because they don't follow these steps, and it's like, was it, you know, don't have kids until you get married, get
married at 18, even though that's a disaster financially normally, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, look, the one that's doing all the heavy lifting in the sequence is like, have a full-time job. It's like, yeah, no shit, right? You'll have more money if you have a full-time job than if you don't. All the rest of these things are just cultural preferences that are being tacked onto that. And again, if anything, you know, again, people without children have a lot more disposable income than people with children. So if you can't afford the house in the suburbs, even without children, you know, this is the idea that you could just like by an act of will, you could have this,
we could fix this, Ben. We just have to go back to the economy of 1842 and have it where like having more kids is profitable because you have more deckhands for your subsistence farming, and also that most of them are going to die. So you just pop them out like crazy because they're a good financial incentive to have more free labor Also because
Actually,
they're basically slave labor at that point, but
when
whatever.
when you put it that way, I see what the problem is right now. There's no secondary market for children aged 4 to 12. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're stuck with them as a loss leader, no matter what return they're making or not making.
They're only making like crappy pasta necklaces at the very expensive preschools and kindergartens that they go to. Like, well, those hands are really fit for like embroidery, for example.
Exactly. I feel
Our
like there needs to
machinery.
be, there's all these missed opportunities, and I feel like that's a market space where an international financial institution or McKinsey, Goldman Sachs might want to take a look. I think that trading some
Lithium
kind of
mining is
securitized,
easier when you're short.
True.
yeah,
All kinds
but
of
like
mining. You need less
securitized
oxygen down there too. Hello.
playtime for children, and then find a way to trade that internationally, maybe through tranches.
So
And then-
we should have like childhood offsets so that like the children of the lazy good for nothing children of the expensive world can offset their laziness by their parents paying for like, I don't know, some money for some corporation to employ more third world children to make up the difference.
I was thinking more that this way, working class families could sell, securitize the
as a food staple. Got it. Classic suggestion. Good call.
That's Kuba for you. I think he just came up with this new startup right on air.
Well, what you could do is actually get some of the kids to wrangle the others, right?
Yes, good point.
So this makes you a different kind of Swiftie.
They're cheering for the joke.
Sarah.
Incidentally.
One minute now. Okay.
A minute and a half. You're okay.
Okay. All right. But there's not that much left to talk about it because I feel like we went off course, and we're not really discussing the sexual revolution anymore. And if if this is what it is, that we have a lot of gripes with modernity, we have a lot of difficulties and challenges that we're facing today that are unlike anything we've experienced before. I think it's normal to feel dissatisfied and to feel like we were promised something maybe that we haven't yet achieved. I think that those feelings are normal and those feelings are good, but I also think that we have a really exciting challenge ahead of us. We have, for the first time been able to, achieve some really incredible things. Even the sexual revolution, even control of our fertility is incredible, and never in the court. I don't know. There's no animal that has ever achieved anything like this. This is a scary thing, and of course, there are downsides. It's been 50 years. I think we can improve on this. I think we can build a better future. And the proposition today is whether we should keep what we have, keep the sexual revolution and build on it, fix it, improve it, yes. Or whether we should go back, or whether we would prefer to live in a world where it didn't occur at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Red Scares, Anna Kachian.
First of all, I want to point out that we're all boy moms here, except for Barry, right?
I'm a girl mom.
Nature is healing itself. That's how we combat the ill effects of the sexual revolution. I had to do a lot of mental gymnastics to get where I am today, arguing against the sexual revolution. It's hard to deny that the sexual revolution has been a great success for me personally, and also in the way that it played out in the culture at large, though those things often come into conflict, especially as a mother trying to keep her child out of the clutches of rabid ideologues while making sure not to indoctrinate him too far in the opposite direction. Still, it would be hypocritical of me to blame the sexual revolution for everything. Instead, I'd like to blame liberals, particularly the intellectual dark web. for pretending to offer a heterodox alternative to wokeness while actually siding with it every single time. A question that kept coming up again and again for me is, do I think of myself as sex positive or sex negative? When Dasha and I first started the pod, I simply assumed I was sex negative because all the sex discourse we were hearing was so off-putting. But if I'm being honest, I'm actually sex positive. I think sex is cool and fun, and it's too late to go back anyway. So terms like sex positivity and sex negativity really have about as much meaning as liberal and conservative. The sexual revolution won out decisively in the public sphere, but it cost us a lot in the private realm by making the personal political, i.e. subject to constant renegotiation. It really took the wind out of its own sails and flung the door open for carpetbaggers. I think that we've raised enough awareness, we've broken all the taboos, we've destigmatized all the stigmas, and I think it's time to stop talking and take responsibility for our desires. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
So happy for her to stop talking. God damn.
And last up, before you get a chance to vote again, Grimes.
Okay, I mean, the thing I want to say is like, I still argue that the sexual revolution has succeeded, if for another reason, then I believe I have a moral imperative to optimism. I think if the possibility of failure is entertained, the battle is already lost. And this isn't even just about the sexual revolution, but like everything about our society. It's always like, is it good or is it bad? Is it this, is it that? Are we gonna like fight each other? Like, and it's just like, I don't know, broken record here, I say this all the time, but like my favorite Buckminster Fuller quote is, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Like if we hate it, make a new thing. You can develop like internal morality in your own community, in your own family. Like you can like teach your kids things, like they don't have to go to the schools and learn them. Like, I don't know. I just like, I feel like people like forget their own agency. And actually, like we have a lot of it, and there's a lot of us, and we have hands, and we have opposable thumbs. Like we like are very impressive primates, and we're very smart, and we should make things better, and we can do it ourselves.
Okay.
Okay.
I was with Grimes until she started talking about the moral imperative to optimism, and then I was totally out. Like,
okay, but we do have opposable thumbs.
We do.
That's
you can
true.
tell that she came from a wealthy family with that one. Moral imperative to optimism. She's so cute. Like, I don't want to like her, but you know, with Sarah Hayter on the panel, who seemed very lacking in self-confidence, and always the first thing she brought up was how much time she had to speak. Grimes gets on and starts sounding like the most incredible case of ADHD, like 7th grader. She's so excited, and I don't know. I felt like a proud parent sitting in the audience on her graduation speech.
Yeah. And then you watch Anna basically stab her partner in the back with her final speech. It's just like, wait, whose side are you on again? Apparently no one's. Like,
apparently no one's.
She also did, to be fair,
She's on my mom's
remember part one, she also did in her opening.
Yeah, it's true. Stab going in, stab at the end. I mean,
it's like having Italy as your number one ally.
Yes. I just want to address quickly a question in chat, which is yes. The answer is yes. JA. Isabella Rossellini did an amazing series on sexuality for, I want to say, Sundance, and one of the episodes was about how ducks have corkscrew-shaped vaginas, and that's multiple, because when they have sexual partners who are undesirable to them to mate with, they can like wiggle their way that partner into the wrong corkscrew-shaped vagina, because they have corkscrew-shaped penises as well. Obviously, we don't just like develop that for no reason.
Also, ducks are like the most rapey birds on the planet.
Well, that's why. So the female developed that ability to discern. Yeah, and definitely check out Isabella Rossellini's amazing series on sex that includes.
When it comes to birds, there's a reason they're called peacocks and not pea gentlemen.
Those dad jokes.
Oh man,
that boy mom comment killed me, because also she's such someone said she smarmed herself, like she smarmed so hard she broke. She's one of the like most cynical, obnoxious people out there in media, I think, her and her partner. And like, I know that if she saw any average Becky looking woman walking down the street with a stroller wearing a t-shirt from Etsy that said boy mom, she would point and laugh and make jokes about it. But she just did this whole like, I'm a boy mom and nature is healing itself. And it's like, you get a boy or a girl at birth. That's how it works. Like, nature is not making more boys at the moment, according to any statistics that I have seen. And the fact that you're raising a boy who you want to be comfortable with his masculinity enough that he can listen to his mother, isn't that just called raising a child with respect?
Also, do they want the result of like 80s China during the one child policy? Is that like what they want? I was actually thinking about some of the really perverse implications of like the idea that like there's too many women born or something. Like, I was like, okay, so I guess
what I was taking away from that was that the boy moms on stage were going to successfully raise the future Übermenschen, which would then monopolize. They would be the top of that pyramid that all women aspire to mating with, but they would be so elevated that they would actually be able to fulfill that role. And then that superior genetic legacy would obviate the need for any further sexism, patriarchy, or
exactly.
Yeah,
they can undo the sexual revolution while teaching the young women how to take accountability for their own actions, and we'll be saved.
Yeah.
And then at that point, Louise can come in and fix things to her liking.
Nietzsche was an incel.
Will be revealed.
That's all I gotta say. Nietzsche was an incel. All right.
Just like the B'nai Gesserit, exactly.
Possibly. Although, there's also, got syphilis from somewhere, right?
Well, I actually think that we've disproven they had syphilis.
Oh, did I? Sorry, I guess I'm behind. I didn't know this.
Yeah, like that was the theory about why he went crazy, but it seems like he just went crazy. Like he did. He according to his letters, he had sex once with a prostitute. Yes, and that's it. That's
okay. Because the thing I remember, a quote from the letters, is that he his friends took him to a brothel, but he was more interested in the piano than any of the girls. But I always just thought he was gay, right? Like I don't
a prostitute with syphilis to spit in his mouth so he could claim that he had sex that one time. Maybe I think
I don't know.
Limbo is the one that had syphilis for sure.
He had a really weird relationship with Richard Wagner's wife.
That's interesting. Did he paint her toenails or something?
No, he wrote all kinds of letters to her when he went insane. I don't know why I know all this shit about Nietzsche, but anyway,
whatever. Great trivia knowledge.
Yeah. Well, it's now headcanon for me that Nietzsche painted Wagner's wife's toenails. So that feels true. Yeah, I just want to note that the last thing we heard, was, well, I guess the last thing we heard was from Grimes, but the and that was something about opposable thumbs, and I'm not quite sure I understood her point. But the last thing that we heard from Anna Carpathian was that she was building up to this as if she was actually going to say something at the end.
She's
and
good
then
at that.
last thing she said was oh, we have to take responsibility. It's meaning what? What exactly do you want who to do?
Yeah, because she also just argued that it was impossible to reverse the sexual revolution because what caused it wasn't anyone's thought out thing anyway, which I think is actually true, kind of true. And also Louise said the same thing, and I'm like, then why the fuck are we having this argument? If you don't think it's reversible, or you do think it's reversible, but only through force of the Übermenschen,
right?
So
I'm gonna spare Kuba and be generous to Anna on that point. Oh my God. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with what she was saying before about the sexual misgivings of teenage years. And don't blame porn or the sexual revolution or men in general for making choices with your own body that you later regret. You learn from those mistakes and hold yourself accountable. And I think that's true not just for young women, but for men as well. And that's part of growing up. And I don't think that is necessarily something that belongs to one generation. It might be, or one gender, certainly. It might be more true of generations after the sexual revolution than those prior. But, you know, it just, the stakes were different. Like maybe you kissed a boy and it became public knowledge and your reputation was sullied, you know what I mean, earlier on. So, yeah, that's the only thing that I'll say in response to that.
I also think that it ties into the safety obsession of contemporary parents, contemporary parenting, or the parenting of the last 3 generations. More precisely,
the weak makingness.
Well, yeah, the idea that as long as everybody is behaving properly, the outcome, at least for my children, should always be good. So if the outcome is not good, then clearly somebody has wronged my child at some point. But the reality is, like, well, sometimes you do everything right and a pack of wolves comes out of a hitherto undiscovered cave and eats all the children before dawn, right?
And it makes your children strong.
Well, the survivors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I when I talk about generational norms,
at the very least, it selects for the strongest.
Right. When I talk about generational norms, I actually do kind of sound like a reactionary because I'm like, oh, kids today they're great and compassionate and knowledgeable, but weak.
Well, let's remind everyone that like Varn is not the old man sitting on his porch and yelling at the children not to like throw the ball into the yard. He's actually a teacher.
Yeah,
has the most interaction on a daily basis with young people. So these judgments come from somewhere.
And I don't blame the kids for that either. Honestly, I really do blame their parents and their safety obsession.
I mean, I mostly interact with young people when I ban them from my chat, but
right.
That's
and sometimes they're actually 35 and not 14.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'd teach you, but obviously much less young. But yes, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you said, the last 3 generations. I was trying to do the math on that in my head, right? Because you know, it does seem like a lot of. I mean, at least a lot of the stuff I think of when I think of like safetyism, child rearing, is like extremely recent. Like, you know. I don't know. Bush was president, kind of recent.
The helicopter parents. That was like not really a term until the Gen X.
Deep State grew up in Canada.
From the 90s.
Yeah. Because I mean, certainly I can remember. Like I don't know. Like,
I was feral. So
I mean, like
splinter haired.
You know, I don't know. I mean, it's like just all this stuff that you like every time I see one of these stories about like, you know, people who had like the, you know, child protective services called on them because their kids were playing in the lawn or whatever. Right. Like I always think like, I don't know. I mean, like certainly in the late 80s, I can remember, you know, I could, you know,
I actually lived through that change, Ben. Like my brothers actually got in trouble for being out unsupervised in the lawn in the mid 90s. So I think it does actually confirm the Kubas. But I was like,
okay,
I was literally just feral. Like we were just everywhere. We were breaking into stuff all the time.
I mean,
that's very classic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that is now the kind of like Stephen King nostalgia. Because
certainly in the late 80s it was like you know, like I don't know, it'd be like the responsible thing would be like, oh well, you know, your 7-year-old is like walking to school for a mile, but don't worry, they're not with themselves, they're with their 10-year-old sibling, right? Like that was, you know, like, and that was considered to be like good responsible parenting if you were like making sure that was happening, right? So it's like it certainly couldn't have been much earlier than the mid 90s.
But it's weird because like the pendulum just swings and swings and swings, right? Because at one point it was the helicopter parent and it was all of the time, but again, like it was class related because if you worked all of the time, if both parents worked all of the time, it was much more difficult. Yeah, to see what your kid was doing at any point in time. I was left after I got off of the bus at the library for like hours and hours and hours when I was with my mom, for example. And that's not really a thing that you can do anymore either.
Oh yeah. No,
but then after that, it was like, you know, then Facebook and well, first MySpace came around, and what you had to do was monitor your child's, you know, online presence and who they were interacting with and all of that. But now we're back at the point where it's like you can't go outside alone because there's nowhere to go, and you know, you're gonna have your stuff monitored or limited.
Parents have anxiety.
Now it's YouTube is monitoring what you can do and see as a kid, and every kid gets their own little tablet to keep them busy because parents still don't have time to really check in.
But they're spying on their kids all the time too. I mean, because this is the other thing. Like when we try to do stuff about cell phones in class back when I was an in-person teacher, the parents would have a conniption more than the kids about not being able to contact their children 24/7.
Why do you need to know what's going on in school? Oh, maybe school shootings? Just an idea.
Well, okay, but I'm gonna actually push back on all the fucking school shooting talk because like they're still really, really, really fucking rare. You are still more likely to get hit by lightning. Like
in America, or like, where are we talking about in the world?
No, I'm talking about America. Okay. Like how many school shootings do you think there've been in a year?
I don't know, in the hundreds, I think.
No.
Okay. Just saying. No, I wasn't a point for parents needing to be in contact with their kids 24/7. I still think it's stupid.
But I also think what we do with the kids is because there are more school shootings, statistically speaking, since any other time but the 1980s, which, by the way, was probably the height. I think maybe the height's actually 2019, and then before that's like 1984.
Yeah, I think it does depend a little bit what you mean by school shootings. So if you, I mean, the thing that comes to mind when you say school shooting is like the person who comes in to shoot up the school, and that's incredibly rare. The thing, like a gun goes off in a school, like actually is
that's not that rare. But
no, it's really not. Like, I mean, that probably is hundreds, but it's
we never talk about school stabbings either. I think that's probably higher. Yeah,
exactly. Like that, you know, so like some sort of violence happened. I mean,
violence in schools has other than fatal violence has actually declined in the last 20 years, which is something that I think is often not talked about. We have much less fights. The fights we do have are much less severe. I mean, what I think we've done to these kids is we fucking terrorized them by having them do active shooter drills 5 times a year, and thus believing that they're going to be shot all the time. Which at this point, I don't even know why we think they would work, because we've done them the same. Like there was all these innovations after Columbine, but we haven't changed protocol since then. So like every fucking school shooter would know the protocols.
Yeah, they were
because they've been drilled on them.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, I think like school shootings in the sense that people are thinking of are like, you know, it's like dying in, you know, in like a terrorist attack. You know, it's just, you know, vanishingly rare, even though, I mean, 2 things are true, right? That it's like dramatically more common in the US than anywhere else.
Absolutely.
But, you know, like totally true, but also the chances of it happening in any particular school are still teensy tiny, right? It's you know, both of those things are true, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel true because people spend so much time thinking about them. But
yeah, so the highest year of school shootings was 2023, actually, and there's 340. However, most of them are not on campus. Actually, they are also not random, and they're not mass shootings. They're one-on-one violence right outside of the school, usually gang related.
That's interesting. Also, mass shooting is what, like more than 2 people or something in the definition. So
most of these shootings are actually one-on-one violence, which is still too much. But like the fact that there's any, like, I don't want to say like that we don't have a school shooting problem. The fact there's any fucking school shootings is a school shooting problem. But like when people tell me, "Oh, am I afraid?" Because I hear this all the time. Like, am I afraid at the schools of a school shooter? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, the likelihood of it happening is very, very low, even at 350 per year, which I think is higher than the highest year we've ever had. I want you to multiply the number of schools in the United States by that. Like you're in a population of 360 million. So like, we are freaking kids out about a risk that is relatively low.
If I could just interject, that it's interesting that the conversation has gone here, but it really makes sense to me as well. And I think that it's a far more relevant conversation in a lot of ways than whether or not the sexual revolution has failed. And it's not gender specific or anything, but it is also kind of the impact that it has on the youth and what that means for future generations. And I like to think when we're talking about the likelihood of a school shooting and the danger to children, if suicide isn't like a much bigger problem right now.
Oh my God.
It's an order of magnitude bigger. Like, I have never had seen or been witness to a school shooting. Actually, Jordan, you funny. I have been witness to a school stabbing when I was a student.
Yeah.
But
we've all seen Pay It Forward. No, I'm kidding.
But I will be honest with you, the number of students that I have who are hospitalized for suicidal ideation per year is now over 20. And
20 per
I
year?
have 20 per year.
Jesus.
And that's out of a sample size of around 300 kids. So that's, and the number of students who've completed 3 in the past 4 years, and one while they were like not in my class, obviously, but under my care. So I worry a lot more about suicide than I do about school shootings, and that's endemic right now.
Yeah. I did. So I guess the closest to even in that 346 cents to a school shooting is when I was substitute teaching like 10 years ago. I got there was the school was like locked down for a few hours because somebody had like discharged a gun near the school, but it which turned out actually to be a armed robbery of a home that was near the school, which was in fact carried out by students at the school, at least one of whom managed to sneak back into to school and pretend like nothing had gone on. But
Among Us, really,
good old feral boys going out there.
Such fond memories of skipping class as well.
Right. I just looked up school violence because we hear a lot about this right now. And people are like, oh, there's fights all the time in inner city schools. The school violence rates reported, now this is admittedly reported and there's a lot that probably isn't, but the school violent rates recorded are 67% of schools have reported one violent incident per year, but that's just anything that involves a fight. And I'm pretty sure in the 80s it was closer to like 100%.
Yeah, for sure.
And the number of violent incidents per 100,000 is 5. So five violent incidents per 100,000 students in the United States. Okay. Now, that's not insignificant, but it's actually lower than like violent crime percentages are. It's lower than the murder rate and per average in the United States. So I just
goes back to your point of children are weak now.
Well, it's also we see so much of it now. Like you can get like people recorded on phones. We don't have a record of what happened in the 70s and 80s, except that we knew that they put in metal detectors in the mid 90s. It was way before Columbine when they started doing that. So I do find like the safety culture stuff is weird. And one of the things that I've been reading a whole lot about recently is TikTok and safety paranoia, like, which seems to be rampant. Like, people are just constantly afraid of everybody. And I do think that, like, that's conservatizing.
Right. But
so,
stranger danger was also a thing in like the 80s as well. And
yeah, I remember a lot of that. That, you know, yeah, you're allowed to run around as you like after school, but you were terrorized about talking to strangers.
Yeah, don't talk to anybody.
That's why you need to live in the suburbs, obviously.
Like, be feral, but like antisocial.
Yeah. Run around with your little friends, but like, but don't, if an adult says, hey kid, stop that. Oh, it's a stranger. You probably shouldn't talk to them anywhere.
Yeah. Get started.
Yes. So Mercutio asked, is this going to tie back to the sexual revolution? The panel suggestion: less clocks, more cocks. So yeah,
yes.
That's
apparently yes.
I would agree. Glocks are bad. Cocks are also kind
of more
weird.
Neutral on the second term, just to be fair.
But you do what you do. You do you. I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum.
That's
right. Please never use that phrase again.
Yuck anyone's yum. I like pushing Ben slowly over into old man territory. Just like
I've been pretty game about everything, but I'm going to draw the line at yuck and yum. That's nobody needs to talk like that. But
now we're back at the shaming and vanilla and everything of the beginning. I feel so full circle.
Yeah,
in this moment.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, so it does seem like the actual debate. The problem, I think Varn said it earlier, but the problem is if you're going to, look, the sexual revolutionist fine side was, fine. It just suffers from the problems and incompleteness of, bourgeois liberalism in general, but is fine. The sexual revolutionist very bad side suffers from the fact that they sort of acknowledged that at a couple of points that you can't actually just sort of hypnotize everybody into pretending that birth control doesn't exist. And so if you actually wanted to, put the genie into the bottle, you would need to use coercion. You need to use the state in some way. But in this context, they were unwilling to spell out what that would have meant. So it was
That's
sort
the
of
coy feminine way of going about things.
Coward.
Of course. Weird way of saying it, Varn. Okay, fine. Yeah, I don't know. I just have this thought that I kind of want to share. It might not mean anything to people who are watching or listening later, but it is directed at someone in the chat. And if you're so obsessed with generational differences and what year someone is born affecting their behavior without getting into the material conditions and only talking about cultural or ideational things, then what you're doing is astrology and not historical materialism. Thank you.
Fair enough. Kuba?
Well, have we finished the whole thing? What were the results?
Oh, who gives a shit?
Who screamed the loudest at the end? Was it Anna's fans?
Yeah, this is the thing that I hate the most about like I actually really like structure and debates and it being clear, whose turn it is to talk and for how long and all that stuff. Big fan of all that stuff. I think voting at debates is dumb as shit because it's a really weird model of how persuasion works. That it's going to be instantaneous. That it's like is that how that
works? Yes, I love that. Absolutely.
The reason that
once your brain has been exposed to the truth, you just immediately,
I do that all the time when I learn new information and just start clapping.
Well, it's like a pH strip, right? You change color.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I don't know. I think about all the times that I've changed my mind about things that mattered in my life, and I don't really feel like any of them were like that. That if anything, most people's first reaction to hearing like a good argument for something that you deeply disagree with is like irritation. And then, at best,
that's kind of like, well, hey, moment.
Yeah. At best, it sort of slowly works on you over time, and you hear other things that kind of clump together with it. And I mean, like that, it's not that people don't change their mind or that arguments don't play a role. Of course they do. And of course they do. But it's just not like that. The minute you hear it, you're persuaded by it. That just seems like not how human persuasion actually works. So I don't understand the point of that at all. It just sort of seems to incentivize people lying about what they think at the in the opening poll. But as I recall from the first time, I think the sexual revolution lost. So there you go.
It came within 1%.
We here.
Came within 1%.
It was like Quebec separatism. That close.
Well, I mean, that just tells you who Barry Weiss attracts, really. But like, it is sort of, I don't know, man. We just watched an IDW debate with like the most reasonable person being fucking Grimes, who can't finish a sentence. So and I guess Anna, who made good points, would then undercut them, ironically, the very next second. I feel like I could watch Sarah Hayter and Louise Perry like fight to the death, and that would be mildly amusing. But like, this was not.
There are way too many people in this audience who would find that arousing, and therefore I am against it.
Okay, so Jordan comes down on sex negativity, freaking us out all the time, and the whole time she was secretly on the no side the entire time. No, I find it
cards close. You know what I mean?
I find it. If I'd have just watched this without talking to you guys about it, I would have thought that I was stupider after watching it. Like that's kind of where I'm at. So I feel like everybody lost, but that's just
okay. I think
the best wars are like that.
The internecine sexual revolution.
I think I won because I already saw this and it really frustrated me, and I had all this stuff to say about it, and I managed to convince all of you people to share in my pain and thus give me a chance to say it all. So I mean, I
lost twice because Ben texted me after the actual event, and then I had to sit through it. So.
That's true. Jordan actually did get a pretty good play-by-play of what happened in this debate originally over text. But yeah, this is
that makes sense as a woman, the only woman on the panel as well. That's that.
We clear all of our sexist thoughts through you. You know that, right? We launder our misogyny through Jordan. Like that's what. Like Jordan, is my misogynistic thought okay or not okay?
Yeah,
that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I had to. So that makes the metaphor weirder, because I was going to say that in the I won theory of this, that I suppose this was all the equivalent of like there was something nasty in my fridge and I made everybody smell it. Jordan had to smell it a couple of times for some reason. Right. So
and I had to throw it away.
Yeah, it is funny. You like did the whole like, this is gross, taste it with all of us, but then you somehow con Jordan into doing it twice. Like,
God damn it.
Taste it again. No, I remember.
Well, I think it's better this time.
That's right. Yeah.
You will. Has anyone ever been to the Coke Museum in Atlanta? Okay, never mind. Ben, I even lived there.
I even lived in Atlanta for 2 years, but I never went to the Coke Museum. Sorry.
There's this room of like random ass sodas from around the world, and it is exactly what you think it is. It's just like, oh, I want to try this soda that smells vaguely like perfume and old people, and this one that kind of looks like yogurt, and the thing is. The reason why I bring it up is sometimes they do get better after you've been grossed out the first time. It's kind of weird. You're just like, oh, I kind of see how people could like this, even though
an acquired taste, as they say. Absolutely.
All
Also,
right.
Dylan Vashro read my mind when you said the Coke Museum. I was like, which with Coke? Like with a K?
Well, they used to be the same, Jordan. So, like,
yeah, fair enough. All right, well, sounds good. So, yeah, next time I'm in San Diego, we can watch this again. Maybe it'll taste better. So,
Officially uninvited forever.
yeah, this is a new game. Coke or Coke. Like,
yeah. Also, I lived in Miami for 2 years, and I lived in Atlanta for 2 years, and Miami for 6.5. So, every time I'm like, oh yeah, that kind of Coke. Okay.
Oh, right, of course. You mustn't leave out the third.
Yeah. Also, all soda is Coke. Still, even though I haven't lived in the South for like 17 years, I'm still like, no, I mean a Pepsi Coke or like
the orange Coke. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys. This was a lot of this was a lot of fun, or at least it was for me. Your mileage, as they say, may vary, but in any case, thank you all for tasting deeply of that gross thing in my fridge, and we'll see you all in a few weeks. Left is best.